Hey everybody, it's Rydo and we are back with some more Hearthstone. We are down to our last quest of this recording session. All I need is one victory, hopefully with the Mage, so we can then work on grinding some gold with the Mage and grinding the Mage for wins. Still gotta get 500 wins. Victories so I can get up to rank 20 at least. Don't really have to worry that much about getting to rank 20. We will certainly get there before the end of the month. Each month is apparently a season. Well, maybe not. Maybe some months, maybe seasons go a little bit longer than that. I'll have to check. I'll have to try and figure that one out somehow. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll
The light shall bring victory.
look into it.
You asked for it.
Pretty good starting draw. I see Haley. Alright. Is that how you spell Haley? H-A-I-L-E? Maybe it's Isabel Haley. Something like that. Don't want to kill my guide. I don't see a reason to at the moment. Alright, so let's go ahead and play this. Took a lot of cards there just to get rid of the Annoyatron. But he healed me, which I like to do on occasions where I can't do anything else that matters. Alright, so this guy and then this guy. So now we start. On the 5th turn we can actually hit the face. You don't get tons of like under 5 turns victories. You'd have to have a pretty fine-tuned deck to be able to do that, and they balance things out pretty well, so you can't do that.
Of magics.
Job's done.
interesting strategy. Does he have another card that will heal him to do that again? Nope. So let's see, do this and this. Throw this guy out. And
Vaporization
attack
commencing.
the face. I have 30 health, he has 19.
Let me change your mind.
Take control. He's got several cards to take control. Now I was just thinking too that I had one too many guys on my side. But so whenever a character is healed, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So every time he heals a character,
Vaporization commencing.
it's gonna work against him.
Job's done.
Deal 6 damage next turn.
I bring life.
Okay. So set the hero's remaining health to 15. So it could be either hero. Straw this.
No.
And then let's do this. I need one more to hit this guy. I desperately wanted one to hit him. I didn't want to have to kill my guy. But that's fine.
Vaporization commencing.
Out of cards now. Kinda in a dangerous position. Alright, so can't attack at the end of the turn. Does 8 damage to a random enemy. So no reason to even freeze him. Whenever a character is healed, so if he heals him, will it do 1 random damage? I think it will. We shall see. Yep. So he's giving him all this health, all this attack. Well, if I can get really lucky for 11 more turns. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I need to do some damage to the face.
Behold the might of Stormwind!
So I can do 7 to here if I can get like 5 more damage. Right. Well, that should be the end of me.
Embrace the void.
Alas, no victory. All we're doing today is Mage. Might as well.
Jaina versus Jaina.
Truth.
You asked for
I
it.
think I
My
fought
magic
Truth's
will tear you
brother,
apart.
Fear. If you're gonna make a bot and just name him something, why don't you just name him Bot 1, Bot 2, Bot 3? Not gonna fool anybody. I like the death sound of the snow chugger. Seven damage in 3 turns.
None shall pass.
The Black Knight, created by the Unstable Portal. Now the Black Knight destroys an enemy with taunt. Just one. I guess you get to pick if you have more than one with taunt. Goblin Blastmaster, if you have a mech, deal 4 damage, randomly split among the enemies. Interesting. We want to freeze these guys? Yeah, I think we better. So 13 damage already here. cannot kill any of these guys. Might as well throw this guy out there.
Job done.
Man, we started off strong. We just couldn't finish the race. We sprinted. Really sprinted on this one. And he's just proving how much he could have done. And boy, was that a lot he could have done. Ever so slowly working our way up to level 57. You know, when you don't have to go back and figure out what the other guy is and check the quests, it can be a little bit faster getting into ranked games. Game number 3, still haven't won.
Jaina versus Valyria.
Watch your back. You asked for it.
I don't want any of these cards. Trying to think of something to talk about. I guess nothing's really lately happened. But one thing I have done lately is, let me explain this. Like, there was a period before I started recording where I developed arthritis, and I still have arthritis, but I'm managing it better now somehow. I took a long break from video games altogether, and I've told this story before. And so, that's just a disconnect and double concede. Well, that's not a real game. We're not counting that. And so there was a long time in which I just wouldn't play any games. Plus, particularly in this last year, there's been a long time where there weren't that many games worth playing.
Jaina versus
Or I've been
Rexa.
busy, or I've
Let's
been doing
hunt
something else.
begin.
But
You
what,
asked for
so,
it.
in an effort to somewhat artificially, very artificially, replace all the time I've played with video games, time which I've now taken back and even gone further, because now I'm broadcasting myself play video games. But there was a time when I started reading trade collections of comic books. And now, what I did, and all of this I feel the need to justify. What I did was, I got a great deal online for a year subscription of DC Comics. And that was really no choice. It was either get the deal with DC or get nothing. So there was no choice to get any independent comics or to get Marvel comics. And so I got, as I often do when I get deals, I'll just overspend at the moment, and then it, in my mind at least, balances out for the year. Because if you spend like $100 now, that's cheaper than spending $2 a week. Because there's $52 weeks in a year, so that saves you $4. And usually it's more than that. Comic books themselves, one individual comic book sells for like $2, $3, somewhere in between there. And so there's a lot of if you bought the individual ones, you would not be getting good savings. If you get what they normally offer you for the normal offer for a annual subscription, you get it close to half off what the cover price is, and if you can get a little bit better than what they normally offer, then you're doing about as good as you can, because heck, DC and Marvel and all of them have a monopoly if you want to read any specific character. And so I went with DC and I got these comic books basically monthly. I experimented with it, withheld judgment for a lot of it. Let's see. And went through a year of getting them. And I got more than moderately interested in some of the stories. So some of the stories I was moderately interested, just right down a 5 out of 10 on my interest level on them. And I was like, okay, this is interesting enough to keep reading. And then a lot of them were more than 5. Some of them were downright 10 out of 10 and interested, or maybe not 10 out of 10, but 9 out of 10 wouldn't surprise me if we could measure such immeasurable things. But
Job's done.
one of the series that really interested me when I was reading it was the Red Lantern series. Batman series can be all over the board. Superman series, when I was reading them, was just completely uninteresting. Plus, I had like 3 different Supermans that were doing 3 different things. So I couldn't even wrap my head around what they were trying to do there. Some of the other ones, all of my subscriptions started at the wrong time. They started like 3 months before they wrapped up a season, as it were, a run, as they call them. And that means at the beginning I was in the middle of a run that I didn't really see had to just figure out what was going on. And then I got to a new run where I could finally start somewhat fresh and see what was going on. And then at the end they started another run and I didn't see the end of it in that fashion. But it only took me probably 8 months to realize that I did not like waiting a month. The waiting a month to read what is effectively 20 pages in a comic book with very little words, and then you have to wait another month for the next story, is not a good way to do it. Often they would pull tricks there's a lot of crossovers and cross references and this and that and this and that, so it's like, if you're reading Superman, it says you have to go get Batman and Superman to get the whole story, and I'm like, no, I want to get the whole story right here, right now, and I bought the book, I think I deserve it. I mean, imagine if you were, well, I guess even the Harry Potter kinda does that, but not very much, and most other books don't do that at all. Although, argument could be made that if you get really deep into like Stephen King, every Stephen King story I think is connected, or he tries to make it out like they are. Let's see.
Are you ready for this? Job Job's done.
So where was I going with that? But it did interest me in reading the stories. I just didn't like the them waiting a month for it. So I did some more research, and they come out in trade paperback collections. So for $12, you can get a book that is the collection in some sort of the that year's or so worth of comics. Now, I could never figure out, and still haven't figured out, if they recut things.
Versus Throw.
And by recut things,
You asked
do they
for
go
it.
in there and take each panel and place it a little bit better in the trade paperbacks? Do they cut out a few panels to make it, to make things fit? Do they? I know that if they need to do some edits in wording or something, they'll go back and do that. And so it's almost like the monthly releases are the betas and the final product is the trade paperback. And that's very true because the trade paperbacks still sell much longer than a back issue of a comic book, as far as I understand it. Like, this month's version of Batman is worth $3. Last month's is still worth $3 and maybe a little bit of a small extra fee. But when you get 5 months behind, it's becomes worthless to the stores. They don't want to keep that stock because they don't have the room for it. And most stores don't want to keep old stock for anything. Because there's storage fees associated and all kinds of ways of thinking that you probably wouldn't have given thought to. Let's see, what does this card do? Your mechs cost one less, whatever. And so, comics that are about 5 months old, back issues, not worth keeping around really. And comics do not become more valuable until they are like 20 or 30 years old, and they have to be released in small numbers. Today's DC Marvel things are not going to ever probably be worth anything because they come out, they make too many of them, and there's too many people collecting, quote unquote, because they want to have that habit. So trade paperbacks are I don't know, they're not 12 issues, they're like six issues, half a year. But it makes for so much better reading. To sit and read what is a thin book, and it's barely any reading, which I appreciate not having to read that much because I am not an avid reader. I am working on myself to become one, I suppose, but I'm a bad reader, as probably some of my other videos have proven. That So I appreciate reading the trade paperback. Sorry, man. Today has not been a good day about paying attention. It certainly has not. It, so I like to read the trade paperbacks, and the reason why I'm reading the trade paperbacks and got into comics at all is because of the arthritis and couldn't play video games for a good year or so. I mean, could have been more than 1 year, could have been several years, but at least 1 year. I did not play any video games at all, and it sucked.
What to do?
And so I got into DC. Part of the the appeal to of DC to me is that they rebooted their series a couple years ago, but at this point it seems like they are on the verge of cycling out most of the reboots and rebooting the series, which DC and Marvel, DC does it a lot. Marvel theoretically doesn't do it, but they have some things they try to be good starting point, but not enough. Marvel will cancel things like Fantastic Four was canceled, and then they came out with Future Foundation to replace it, and then Future Foundation has now been canceled, and they're coming back with Fantastic Four, but I think it's going to be the same numbering scheme. So it gets complicated on Marvel side, and it's not a whole universe reboot. So we cannot, like, Spider-Man was Superior Spider-Man. I think at this point it's back to Spider-Man. I haven't really done the research, but Spider-Man's somewhere in like 600 issues, and that's ridiculous to think, okay, so I need to go back to issue 1. That's the whole point of why the reboot was appealing on it. They called it the New 52 for DC. And so the trade paperback started with the new issue 1 of Batman. The new issue, well, actually they had 0 issues too, but they didn't really matter. So it was a issue 1 of Batman, issue 1 of Superman, and you really didn't need to know anything other than just the general things that most people would go, of course everyone knows that already. Things like, do you know who Superman is? Do you know that he can fly? If you got into the comic books and you didn't even know that much, you might be a little lost. There are some underlying things that you should know getting into comic books, like, did you know that Superman was weak to kryptonite and magic? So often magic spells will hurt Superman, and that's lesser known. And if you do know that, then you have to realize that there is a lot of magic that goes on in Superman. More than you would think. More than what the TV shows or the, I guess the cartoons that I saw ever did. You kind of have to know that it is a money-grubbing industry that tries to get you to buy. They literally, and make it very obvious, they want you to buy every single comic that they release that month. And so for DC, that's 52. That's their magic numbers. 52 series being released each month. Buying 52 comic books each month at $2 or $3, you're talking $100 to $150 each month. It's a major expense, more unrealistic expense, in my opinion. But they'll do crossovers, they'll integrate things. They bought an independent series license company called Wildstorm and started integrating their characters into that. So the TV show that's out now, Constantine, he was a Wildstorm character, and he's integrated somewhat into the DC universe now, so he may show up in a Superman or a Batman episode. I mean, he does know Zatanna, and Zatanna is a magician who fights alongside usually Superman. So he's only like one step removed. And that's a little weird because he was for a long time on his own independent universe, and then they integrated it. Because they want to keep all the universes connected. That way you can always have one like Wonder Woman fighting Catwoman and all that stuff that sells issues. If anything sells issues these days, which maybe nothing does. Alright, so that was the super long way to get around to what I wanted to talk about. What I do is about twice a year I've found, or twice in 1 year I have found, to be more accurate, Barnes & Noble will online and locally, but I usually only find out about it by going to the actual store and seeing that they put the sign up again. They will have a buy two get the third free trade paperback. And so what I'll do is I'll go online and buy like 100 of them and get, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I have, let's see, at this point I've pretty much bought every single trade paperback that has been released. And so 52, and most of them are up to issue 4. So 52, 152, 104,
Job's done.
156. So I have less than 156 because I don't have them all at the moment. I'm still short a few. But I have more than 100 at this point. And so I did that over the 2 times, and that allows me to read 6 months in a row and then read another 6 months in a row right afterwards if I feel like it. I have now gotten to the point where I am mentally overwhelmed, and that means that I do not remember what was in volume 1 trade of something by the time I get to read volume 3. So that's a good thing though, because that means I could more quickly at my leisure decide to go back and read volume 1 and get more value out of it. Because I want to get as many entertainment minutes or hours out of a book as I can. So I have them all. I haven't read them all. I have a big stack that I'm saving. I like to have a little bit of a backlog in everything I do. That has only really burned me in movies, because I have bought movies and not watched them for like still haven't. I bought movies from like years ago and still haven't watched them. But that's fine because I am willing to accept that I own it and I'm just happy owning it. And that's fine too. So, but on the books I probably will read the books. I wonder if old Murkai is a new character with goblins and gnomes.
You to master.
So I've been reading at the moment, which, man, it has been a long conversation to just get to this point, which is the start of the conversation I wanted to have. And I will have to figure out a better way of explaining it. I've been reading Animal Man. Now, when I started reading Animal Man, I knew literally nothing about Animal Man.
Well played.
I'm just gonna keep playing. I think we've already done 5 games, but I'm gonna keep playing while I can continue this conversation. Plus, we still haven't gotten the win, so we're in overtime anyways, and I eventually need to grind out more gold anyways. So what I knew about Animal Man when I started was nothing. Literally
Jaina
nothing.
versus
I knew the
Rexa.
name existed.
Let
I
the
did not
hunt
know what he looked
begin.
like. I did
You
not
asked
know what he
for
stood
it.
for. So what does he stand for? Well, apparently in this run, I think they did a lot of changes. If if I remember hearing correctly, they really decided to just start with a whole new backstory. Well, I know they did because in later on they show the original story, and the original story was like he was abducted by aliens and given powers to imitate the uh, imitate the abilities of animals. So he could get the flight of a bird, the strength of a gorilla, the speed of a cheetah, things like that. And so he would somehow imitate those abilities. And that's mostly what it starts with. It starts off with him being able to do that. He is a superhero who is also a stunt actor. So a little bit two things at once. He did stunts and he was a superhero. And everybody kind of liked him. He was popular. He fought the bad guys and helped the good guys. And quickly in this new reboot of him, we find out he's a family man, which is very interesting in comic books in general. Marvel in particular cannot deal with, I've heard many people say, Marvel cannot deal with people being in relationships. And so they
Don't mess with Tusker.
they killed off Mary Jane and undid Spider-Man's wedding to her because they could not just have a marriage and family matters go. Their thinking is comic books are for kids and kids just don't understand relationships, which is kind of backwards thinking because how are they ever supposed to understand relationships if you're not going to ever show them relationships?
Or both.
Lots of kids are only going to see their parents' relationship, which could be very different in many different ways. And I'll just leave it at that. So they should see more relationships so that they understand what they are. But so it's very strange in Animal Man that really in the first issue or so they show that Animal Man is married to a nice woman that he loves. He has a son named Buddy who has a mohawk and is a little precocious, but he's totally into the fact that his father's a superhero. And then he has a little girl who is pretty cool with it too. So everybody's pretty happy. The only person in their family that's even a little upset that he's a superhero is their mother-in-law that comes in later, and she's saying he's putting his family in danger, which arguably he is. But so they have a no pet rule because Animal Man cannot be around animals for too long or he'll turn into them or lock on their abilities. I don't know which one. I think he turns into them if he's too close to animals for too long. So if they had like a pet cat or anything, it would mess him up. So the little girl would love to have a pet, and she really wants one for like Christmas or something. but they cannot accommodate her.
I wonder.
I am master of magics. I am master of magics.
And so the story starts with all of a sudden the little girl manifests this ability to be able to bring dead animals back to life. And so she brings a dead cat back to life. I think it was hit on the road or something and they buried it. I can't even remember, so if you think I'm spoiling this, I probably am not, because I'm not telling you the real story. So it starts with her developing this ability to bring back dead animals and communicate with the animals way stronger than Animal Man could ever do it. And what this gets into is it turns out that there are three natural and supposed to be balanced forces in this universe. There's what they call the red, which is a life force of sorts that connects all animals. There is what they call the green, which is a life force of sorts that connects all the plants. And then there is a life force of the black, or called the rot, which is a force that is decay and death and dying. And they're all supposed to be balanced out. Let's see. Let's play this game instead of talk.
Vaporization commencing! Vaporization commencing!
Are you ready for this?
So they find out that these three forces exist. The red, the green, and the rot. Turns out the Animal Man is connected to the red, and that's what he's drawing from to get his animal power. Turns out that Swamp Thing, if you've ever heard of Swamp Thing,
That didn't
is
quite hit the mark.
they rebooted his story, and he is connected to the green. So there's this new storyline going on with Swamp Thing, which is very interesting too. I don't know anything about Swamp Thing when it started either. I knew nothing about comics really. I'd never really read them. I read literally one Looney Tunes comic as a child on a road trip. And that was just something my parents gave me to shut me up. So, did not follow them, didn't really have any interest in them. If you can play video games, then you're in love with video games. Why? Don't push yourself to get into something new. If you, particularly comics, they can be expensive. They can be frustrating when they're bad. So, Swamp Thing turns out to be dating this woman who is related to the guy who is connected to the rot. And so she was supposed to be the person who was the avatar, is what they're called, the warrior of the rot, but she refused to ever accept it, and that left a hole for somebody to swoop in and take power. And all animals have a little bit of rot in them, little like tumors and such, and even plants have a little bit of rot in them too. And so, and all rotten things are going to have a little either red or green in them. And even if they explained it real well, even if it is like an alligator, there's a scene where the alligator eats a bird, well the bird ate a leaf, therefore there is some green inside the alligator at that time. So it's a cool thought.
I got the best deals anywhere.
And that's a cool setup. And where am I going with this?
For the Alliance!
I'm about to win, great. So it turns out that the little girl of Animal Man's is supposed to be the real avatar of the Red, but they the people that run the Red couldn't put her in charge because she wasn't born yet, and the last guy got killed by the avatar of the Rot, the Warrior of the Rot, too early. And so there was an imbalance of power. So they artificially gave the power to Animal Man so he could then have a child to be the real one. And that's why she is incredibly more powerful and way more connected.
Well played.
And then it gets into this fight with the Animal Man and Swamp Thing fighting the Warrior of the Rot. And the Rot manages to trick them into going into the Rot dimension where the heart of it, and when they're there they get trapped for a year, and when they get back out, all of Earth with Superman, Batman, all of them have lost because they almost every single person on the planet was killed and taken over by the Rot, because the Rot just spread like a disease, because that's what it is disease. It just spread over all the planet and created these gory, horrific creations. And so they call that Rotworld. This whole series was called Rotworld. It was a great series. They fight the Rot in the future. You see Superman defeated and turned into this horrible Rot creature. You see all the Justice League, everybody done there. Then at the end they go back in time, and none of it really matters. And I don't think Rotworld really occurred in anything but the Animal Man and Swamp Man books. So it wasn't like one of the issues that month was Rotworld for Superman or anything, because they didn't have that big of a part of it. It was really its own separate side story, but it was really cool. And like most comics, it doesn't really matter in the end, but it was released. But it was a great story. It had a great impact. It got a surprise ending, and really got me interested in reading more Animal Man, reading more Swamp Things. Which, if you'd asked me before I started, I would have gone, I have no interest in these. I don't even know what they are. So I'd suggest you check it out. You could get Animal Man Volume 1, 2, and 3, and you would be through all of the Rotworld. If you get Swamp Thing Volume 1, 2, and 3, you'll get Swamp Thing's perspective on the story, and so that would be six trade paperbacks. So not terrible amount that you'd have to buy, and all that. I'm not gonna play anymore today. I'm just gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna make another episode, obviously, because we need to grind out some gold. So I am gonna make an extra episode, but that's it, because we have done the quests and did not get what we needed, which was to get more victories faster. I would warn people on checking out Animal Man to Google some of the images. It is, if you know the movie Alien and the way the alien art looks and what the alien looks like, it is, some of the animations is somewhat like that. So it can be very scary. I would not recommend it for anyone with fear as a weakness in their minds. I don't know how to say that better, but if you get afraid of things, I wouldn't recommend it. If you if it's a young child, no, don't have them look at Animal Man and Swamp Man, because its art style, its goriness, its disformness is quite unique. I liked it a lot, but it's gonna be for individuals. And boy, was that a really long conversation to then have a much shorter conversation. But all I really want to say is check out the Rotworld. Trade paperback, volume 1, 2, and 3 of Animal Man and Swamp Thing. That's what I've been reading lately, and I liked it. And I'll leave it at that. That's the end of this episode. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to. Talk to me about comic books if you want. I mean, I'll listen to you. Just try not to be a ranting lunatic. Any more ranting lunatic than what I just said. And watch every second of the video. That helps too. Have a good evening.